Great. Good afternoon, everyone. A big welcome to those in person and with us online today. I am Deanne Sinclair. I am this year's DIA president, and the Digital Imaging Association is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to supporting the printing industry by hosting monthly educational events on business-critical issues, topics, and trends. These events provide valuable opportunities for networking while also fostering innovation, collaboration, best practices, and a sense of community as we help our members meet their shared challenges head on. We serve all sectors of print with a welcoming and inclusive approach that inspires change, confidence, and continuity across all platforms and applications. The two key mandates of the Digital Imaging Association are to provide education and networking opportunities for our members. I hope you find the educational aspect worthwhile, and as always, we invite your feedback. If you are here with us as a guest today, please consider joining the Digital Imaging Association. Today's session is an example of the high caliber meetings that we run. If you would like more information on membership, please either scan this QR code or contact Marg McLeod at 416-254-4941 or email her at marg@digitalimagingassociation.com. Like most trade associations today, financial stability does not come from the membership revenues alone, and so we turn to the vendors and suppliers of our industry to support our goals. We are absolutely honored to continue to receive the support and recognition of the DIA's contribution to the graphics industry from the following companies. First off, our platinum sponsors, Canon, HP, Innovative Display, INX, Konica Minolta, Landa, Spicers, and Trinet Global Logistics. And next, our gold sponsors, Adobe, Fujifilm, Graphics Canada, Heidelberg, Kodak, Kongsberg Precision Cutting Systems, Mini Giants, and Plastic and Paper. And lastly, a big thank you to GMG Color, Significance Automation, Sydney Stone, our silver sponsors, and Ultimate Tech, our bronze sponsor. Please consider these companies and their demonstrated support of the industry when making your purchasing decisions. I also want to extend thanks to HP. They have graciously provided the technology for this webinar, and again, a platinum sponsor, so thank you, HP. And today's moderator is Dan Thompson, CEO and founder of Italic Press. With plants in Toronto and St. John, New Brunswick, Italic Press is a digital imaging manufacturing company that makes high-value communication pieces for brands. Dan is excited to keep pushing the definition of what print is through innovation and automation. And yeah, so excited to have you here today, Dan. Thank you so much for moderating this panel.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for that non-embellished introduction. Today's webinar is titled Digital Embellishment Demystified. And I guess today, with the help of Kevin Abergel from Taktiful, we're going to explore the world of digital embellishment technology. You're going to discover what digital embellishments actually are, and possibly more important, what they are not, and who's currently using them and how, and where the market's headed, how to stay ahead of your competition and the technology curve, and how embellishments can create enormous value for both printers and customers, and end users for that matter. So our presenter today, a friend of mine, Kevin Abergel, president and founder of Taktiful. Kevin's been a passionate advocate of digital print embellishments for nearly 20 years, starting at MGI Digital Technology. He's worked tirelessly, I can attest to that, to make the technology more profitable and more widely adoptable by printers, brands, and OEMs. In 2022, Kevin founded Taktiful, the only think tank in the world exclusively focused on helping how to grow the digital print embellishment market. With a blend of expertise and enthusiasm, he continues to drive the industry forward, making embellishments not just a viable option, but a thriving aspect for every modern printing landscape. So welcome, Kevin.
Thanks, Dan. It's good to see you again, buddy.
Really good to see you. I'm gonna finish my intro for you and just say that you've been working to transform embellishments and have them available through either AI-powered software and developing expert training programs. So I'd love to hear more about all of that.
Yeah, we're obsessed here at Taktiful with embellishments and what we call sexy print, right? So we wake up in the morning. That's the kind of socks that we put on. Is it's got embellishment on it. We think about it all day long, and really our goal is to make more people adopt the technology, not just from a printer standpoint, but from a customer standpoint. So a big part of what we're working on is how do we get the average Joe who doesn't know what a fifth or sixth color is, or that foil is something that's even available for his kid's birthday party invitations. How do we kind of bridge that gap and just lead to greater market adoption? So that's a lot of the work that we do. And we're so happy to be here with the DIA again. I think I gave a speech a couple of years ago at your Christmas luncheon, which was a great experience. So thank you, Mark, for thinking of us for today's session.
Oh,
And
that's
Dan.
great. Well, you're welcome. And yes, we have a format of a PowerPoint presentation, which I believe you're going to give. And
Right.
we have a few questions that either we'll take as we go along or interspersed at the end, but that's really up to you. So let me know how you want to run this.
Yeah, I would like absolutely hate to PowerPoint people to death here. And I think that's something that if you know me and you've seen my presentation style, I really like to keep it as interactive as possible. So please ask questions. I am going to be leaking some information to you guys on a study that's not out yet. So let's keep it between us if possible. But I figured, why not give you guys a little taste of some of the data that's coming out of the latest study that we've put out on digital embellishments, and I think that'll be kind of telling of, and you guys can judge for yourself on where the market's headed.
Perfect.
All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Is this where I share my screen
Yeah.
at this point in time? All right.
Yeah, good.
All right. So guys, today we're going to be talking about, can you see my presentation? Everything good on your side?
Absolutely great, Kevin.
Fantastic. All right. So I put this together kind of in a rush, but this should really give you a good understanding of kind of what's happening in the digital print embellishment market. And Dan, if I say, when you think digital embellishments, like you've kind of explored the thing, what comes to your mind? Like what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is, what category of embellishment. So whether it be digital or old school analog, and the exciting
Right.
parts in the digital side for sure, but foils, gloss variations, lenticular, a whole bunch of stuff that just sort of throw on top.
Right. So that's what you're saying is this is a relatively new term, digital embellishments. Nobody really understands what is involved in that term. I think the best way to say it is using digital technology to make special effects, right? So it's special effects for print. And you kind of nailed it when you said, there's a lot of different technologies. It's almost as though you've seen my presentation that can do embellishments. And when we're talking about embellishments, there's really in my mind, and I guess I might be a little bit biased, and I would love to get some feedback or some challenge from the audience. Is there's two categories. There's analog, and then there's digital. And inside of digital, you have two different categories inside the digital side, where you have more on the inkjet side and the tone or liquid ink category. So that's what we're going to talk about here. On the analog side, there's hot foil stamping. I'm sure a lot of the printers in the room are available or understand what that is. If they don't do it, they are likely sending this stuff out. There's cold foil transfer, where basically you're converting a tower on an offset press to be basically putting down glue, and foil is sticking to that as your first color, and you could overprint that. So I want you to think, if there's any golfers, I know you guys put on a great golf outing every year, and I would hope to one day be able to make one of those. Go buy a golf ball, look at what those boxes look like. A lot of that stuff, you're going to see a lot of cold foil on it. There's screen printing. So screen printing is one of the tried and true ways of doing embellishments, where you're either putting down a varnish or a specialty looking ink, like a glow in the dark ink. There's some new screen printing now where foil will actually stick to that screen printing ink. I think that's Sakurai's developing that. And there's a lot of different things that are out there. On the inkjet side, we have different technologies that are out there doing embellishments. I'm sure you guys have heard of the MGIs, the Konicas, the Scodics, the Duplos, and now we're seeing some of that also on the roll-to-roll format. So people like ABG, JetFX, we're seeing that start to come out. And basically what that is, guys, is they're putting down using inkjet technology. Think of it as like a clear ink that is like viscous, and they could play with the thickness, and that clear ink that goes down can either act like as a spot UV coat if they put a little bit in. If they slow the machine down and they pile that up, it gives you like a clear textured 3D tactile UV coat. And then if they activate the foil, that goes from being like a coating to like a glue, and the foil will actually stick to wherever the inkjet is putting that clear viscous polymer down. And so that's kind of like the technical way that it goes. Then you have the toner, and you have the EP side, where basically you have things like gold, silvers, a lot of using white. I don't know how many, white is like the new gold, really. Everybody's using a lot of white now, so you can mask out a lot of metallic type of substrates. And I think that's kind of what we're looking at. So Dan, I know you've kind of probably looked at a lot of these different type of technologies. They're really
Yes.
they're across the board when it comes to like how much they cost if you want to bring them into your shop. If you look at inkjet, you have manufacturers who do smaller machines all the way to B1 machines. So that kind of spans the gamut from a cost standpoint. Toner transfer. Yep. Do we have a question?
Uh, Not
No,
yet.
sorry.
Just maybe we
Spin.
can keep
Yeah.
our phones to the mute side of things. And let Kevin continue.
Ah, got it. And then you got things like toner transfer, like our friends from Scandicor, which we just partnered with, who are a Canadian company, who basically are able to use black toner that you're putting down. A lot of people call this sleeking, but the real term is called toner transfer. So for people wanting to jump into embellishments without breaking the bank and testing it out, it's a great place to start. And then really, you look throughout the different technologies, it really kind of spans a lot of different price gaps and price areas, from low all the way to over $1 million machines. So this is what
Okay.
we're gonna. Yep. Go ahead, Dan.
So I was just going to interject here, so this is the price range to jump in, correct, Kevin?
Right.
That you're showing on the screen right now?
Right.
One of the questions that one of the members had was about ROI and like not just the price, but like what's the high value stuff? Where is the value located right now?
Well, I think one of the things people get, I think subconsciously, you look at $1 million press.
Yeah.
And as a printer, if I were to show you a $1.2 million press, in your mind, the first thing what's the first thing you're thinking about when you're looking at that press?
Can I use it 24 hours a day and 7 days a week and get volume
Boom.
on it?
Immediately. And that's like 99% of printers will have that immediate reaction is this has to be volume driven. I need to have high levels of value or volume, I'm sorry, in order to make money with these presses. And that's a typical reaction. That's like, if you don't have that reaction, then I think that's really, anyways, it's a very common reaction. The reality is people don't necessarily realize how much money they can make on every single sheet. And so a big part of the ROI, to answer your question, is that you look at $1 million press, you think you have to run it 24 hours a day. If you're generating $1 or $1.50 per sheet, or in some cases you're generating $10, $15 per sheet, your ROI isn't necessarily as scary as you would think of, because the value that's being generated off these embellishments more than pay back. So many times, you look at a $1.2 million press, people think they need to print at least 100, 150,000 sheets a month on that. oftentimes, depending on the different applications, you can break even on $20,000 or 20,000 sheets a month on a press like that, just because how much you're generating off those sheets. So it's a really good questions. The biggest objection I think we hear from people thinking about getting into embellishments and not pushing it through is really linked to not having the volume to justify making that jump.
So really an important idea there would be, value per sheet, and really adjust the ROI equation, not look at it another piece of print equipment, but something that can really, accelerate the value that's driving the whole organization forward.
That's the key. That's the key. You do some of the math on with embellishments, without embellishments on some of those big web to print companies, Dan, and you see just how much they're charging for 250 business cards with embellishments, and what that actually the cost to produce that is, and you understand very quickly that that there's a lot of money to be made in this. But this again is, I think, one of the biggest challenges in our industry, Dan, is that a lot of printers don't necessarily understand how much they can get for this kind of work, especially if they're getting into embellishments for the first time. And what we've seen is, going to a cost plus model. Do you guys understand what I mean when I say cost plus? Like, Dan, when I say cost plus, what comes to mind?
For sure. For sure. You're either going to just be selling with a markup, or maybe you want to try something different and sell it as what the value of the is instead.
You nailed it. So there's two different models out there, guys, that printers are using and that you guys are using. Is your cost plus model, which means, okay, it's going to cost me $10. I'm going to sell it for 15. That's the cost plus. You have your cost base. You're understanding what your cost is, and you're just adding a markup, like you said. This is a very standard model when you have what's called market maturity, meaning that you have saturation of machines. So if I go to any print shop or any printer in the world, chances are they're going to have a 4-color press that prints at a good quality, meaning that more or less the quality across the board is going to be similar. And I know I don't want to fight to break out in your room there between your OEMs, but I think that they would also kind of agree to the fact that the quality is fantastic, and really cost plus is great when you have a machine on every corner. That's the model to go to. When you're looking at a lot of this digital embellishment technology, there's still a very big scarcity of supply, meaning that there's not a lot of machines that are out there. And when that's the case, you don't use cost plus, you use what's called market bearable costing to understand what that price elasticity looks like and how much you can get for it.
Sure, that makes sense.
Right.
Right.
So those of you we're talking a little bit about digital embellishments and what that means. You have no plates, you have no dies, you really have very minimal setup to get a sheet out. You could do one sheet off some of these presses. You don't even need a file. You could literally just scan your printed sheet in and design directly off the machine to create prototypes to upsell. So you're really creating some really cool effects. And sometimes that's actually a drawback, Dan, is if you have like spectacular effects and stuff that looks absolutely beautiful, where you have like foil on top of foil with like a raised varnish texture on top of that really makes it look stand out. Like, one of the challenges, and we could talk about this later, is how do you scale that to, if you have a customer that's asking for 10,000 boxes of something, to 100,000 or 1,000,000 boxes of something like that, where it doesn't necessarily make sense. So there's a scalability challenge that is built into some of the super cool effects that exist once you want to start getting into very high volumes.
Yeah, we hit that a lot, where we're creating something that uses multiple processes, multiple techniques, and maybe a combination of digital and analog embellishment. And you can make a pretty large soup with a lot of ingredients pretty quickly. But yeah, when you come to then produce the final run, it looks great in concept, but you can add a lot of additional steps there that perhaps don't scale to the final quantity, but looks amazing.
Yeah, that's it. And a lot of that can be overcome like upfront with a conversation with your client. So, for example, we work with a lot of printers who have digital embellishment technologies who want to get into packaging. They'll start working with like a startup and an energy drink and creating their 6-pack holder with embellishments galore. And then all of a sudden that startup blows up, and now they're having to do 1 million boxes for these guys, and they can't do it digitally. You can diffuse a lot of these situations by telling customers up front, hey, listen, once we get to this volume, we're going to have to switch to another type of technology, and that's what it looks like. Or you design it in such a way where maybe you scale back on the sexiness level of what you're doing, and you do it where something could be replicatable on an analog side at a larger run. So there's a lot of this conversation that happens if you do it right with your customer up front so that you're setting expectations.
So a really good note for sales teams out there when selling embellishments: know the final quantity
Yeah.
and really set the expectation. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
and that's right. And the expectation is really important. Like, we work with a lot of printers, as I said, is understanding what that box looks like for your sales team to know what they can sell. If you draw a good enough box and you say, guys, here's the papers we want to use, the laminates, the foils, the thicknesses, like if you draw that box and you tell your salespeople stay inside this box, there's a good chance you're going to be successful. But salespeople, what's the first thing they're going to sell, Dan? Once you give them a box, what's the first job they're going to bring to you?
As much as they can,
Well,
basically.
they're going to bring you
That's
something that's totally like 3 miles from the box. That's not even doable. And then that throws everything up. And then, the salesperson loses confidence because he doesn't think the machine could do it. And then the reality is, if you're very tight in terms of what you're productizing, in terms of expectations, I think that's a key point to making people who include or buy this technology successful.
right. Well, I'm just looking at this slide that's in front of us right now, and I do want you to go on the minimal waste and production benefits of digital embellishment, because I feel like, yeah, we can produce beautiful mock-ups and concepts and prototypes, and then do limited production runs with digital. But I think there's for Canada, I think that's a really great place to be, because our runs aren't as big as they are down in Florida where you are, or in Europe. So in Canada, we have a really beautiful tight market to really exploit this technology. To talk about more of how many do we need to make to make one?
Yeah, so I mean that's the beauty of this. Like you can literally just take a sheet off of your any presses that you're running and put one in and have one come out. And if you don't like how that looks, you could literally just go in, play a little bit with it and change it. The ability to do on-demand one-offs, prototyping to be able to sell a bigger job is I think a big advantage. But I think from a digital standpoint, many people who have digital embellishment also offer traditional embellishments, and it's a great way to sell both the long, the medium, and the short run. I think one of the most important things to remember is, what is the name of the association we're talking here? Is the Digital Imaging Association, right? So a lot of digital printing technologies, and whether you spend $5,000 or $5 million on a digital press, you're always going to have what's called sheet to sheet drift, right? So there's no gripper and guide. So you're always going to have a little bit of a movement on the sheets. They're microscopic. And I think what we have to understand is that a lot of these digital technologies actually catch those and are able to align the registration to catch that drift. And when you kind of look at traditional foil stamping or traditional screen printing, those sheets, I mean, those images are always going to be coming down exactly in the same spot. And so one of the big things this allows you to do is kind of open up being able to register to digital print technologies. Whereas right now, a lot of people would either have to sign a release waiver saying that they're not responsible for the registration, or just do what's called blind embossing or blind foiling, where they're not actually trying to register to an effect.
Right, because every time I go into an analog shop, they're always talking about their operators and how good they are, and the setups, and the quality of what they're getting really matters to them. And it sounds like in a digital aspect that a lot of that goes away, and you could probably incorporate this to other staff members fairly quickly when you bring in
Right.
a new.
Right. So what we're seeing now, it's funny. So we're going to talk a little bit about the study, but we're seeing kind of a maturity in the market where it was the Wild West for the past decade or so. Things are starting to settle down from a market standpoint, from a pricing standpoint, from an adoption standpoint. What we're seeing is that in the past, a lot of the people, and I'm sure there's probably some of them on this webinar in this room that have done this, would make that investment as an exploratory investment, thinking, oh, I think this is something new. Nobody else is doing this. I can kind of open up a new line of business. And there's a lot of inherent risks that comes with being the first, right? You have to create that market. You're going to learn all those hard lessons, but ultimately you get what's called first mover advantage. And now what we're starting to see is that people are doing this for other reasons because they understand either they've been outsourcing a lot of work for a while to somebody who has this technology, and now it makes sense. The math makes sense now to bring it in-house and no longer outsource. So we're seeing that. We're seeing some new applications kind of emerging, particularly in packaging and point of sales. I think that's a really interesting market that's kind of blowing up. And it's kind of moving away from that novel aspect, like, oh, what is this? Oh, this looks cool, to more of a profitability understanding of how much money they're going to be able to make like this. So adoption's going quick, Dan. It's increasing. There's a significantly higher use year over year. But there's still some key barriers that we can talk about for full scale market adoption. That's kind of still kind of pushing people back, which, as I mentioned earlier, that's kind of like what our goal is, to kind of break those barriers down to Taktiful so that the market can grow. So have you ever heard of the Crossing the Chasm? This is like a business book. Are you familiar with this, Dan? This is old school.
I am. I've had my legs across the chasm many times, and we've built up to a lot of our processes to mainstream where people start to ask for them. So for us, that has been. We tend to get in a little bit earlier, maybe not always the smartest thing to do, but it does seem to pan out most of the time for us. So yeah, I do.
Good. It's a lonely place, man. It's a lonely place when you're crossing that chasm by yourself. And I know because I've been there with Tactiful, and so it's absolutely something that, is there a market for this? Are people going to be interested in this? Is this responding to the market demands? Is the quality good enough for the market? Are people ordering this stuff? Are they buying it? Yes or no? And so that's kind of what we're seeing, is that we've shifted from people who wanted like the newest thing and being the first on the block to now people who want a choice, right? What machine do I want to get? What is the best fifth color, sixth color gold that I can get? What is the best speeds I can get on a 30 micron varnish? A lot of these things now, because there's so many new players that are entering the space, it seems like every year there's one, two, three new OEMs that are kind of jumping into the embellishment space. That now people have a much wider choice of who they go with and why they go that way. So we're really kind of seeing that shift towards early majority. I think right now we're firmly planted inside the early majority market, meaning that, we are now starting to go mainstream with digital embellishments. And please, if you guys have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to throw them in right as we go along on this thing. This is fun. So I think a new study just came out too from NAPCO, and I just put this in like 10 minutes before the presentation started because I just got the stats. But 75% of brands reported that they prefer to work with printers that offer digital embellishments, which I thought was awesome. And that's not coming from us, right? That's coming from NAPCO. So it's not us. And then 55% of brand owners and marketers specifically will seek out providers that offer digital embellishments. So one of the biggest obstacles, Dan, and you're probably very familiar with this, is how do you educate your customers that this technology is available and what it can do
Right.
for them? Like how do you educate your customers when you buy new tech?
Oh, well, it's funny because I feel we're getting customers now that have bridged that gap and know that technologies are out there and sort of assume that you're going to be able to provide it for them. So what they don't necessarily understand are the costs involved or the timing that might be added to the job, if any, and or how to use it in a responsible manner.
Right.
Sometimes they really just go overboard and you're just like, pull it back. It will look better if you use less of this and keep it special. So yeah, I mean, we feel that, most brands are asking for it. And if they're not, we can definitely assist that by adding, by educating them if they're not familiar with it. But we feel that most of our brands that we deal with are educated in and have a vocabulary now that they didn't have maybe even 3 years ago. So
Well, that's a testament to you, Dan. That's a testament to you because that's the hardest work as a printer to do is to market yourself, especially if you have something that's new. You can actually teach your brands and your customers what is possible. I can tell you right now that it's probably the biggest obstacle to overcome. I know that print buyers, I think a stat came out, and tell me if I'm wrong, guys, but a stat came out that 3/4 of print buyers have less than I think 14 months experience buying print, meaning that these people turn over a lot. They're typically much younger and they're typically not at all educated on the different types of technology that's out there. So talking to the right people, not necessarily just hoping the print buyer is going to pull the trigger, is really key to making this successful, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I would suspect that the hardest part, and you might be getting into this in a little bit, and I've been holding off, but the hardest part is to visualize this
Right.
and get them basically looking at something that represents what they're trying to portray. So
The
that's
only way to do it, you got to show and tell, right? When it comes to new
absolutely.
technologies. And that's a big thing too, being able to build up your samples portfolio, your lookbook, whatever it is that you have that you can drop off to get these marketing teams and these print buyers to understand what it is that you're talking about is key. And obviously there's the physical, and we're kind of at Tactiful working on a virtual experience so people can virtually experience what that embellishments would look like. But we know right now, one thing is for sure that people who are offering digital embellishments can command premium pricing. And I think as more and more printers keep looking for areas to go into to generate more profit on every jobs, you can generally get anywhere from 70 to 80% margin on a digital embellishment job compared to, I think, what is it, 5 or 6% margin on a regular CMYK job. So the studies that are coming back regarding like what the market's willing to pay for is really, really positive because that's really where this makes sense, right? It's people who don't want to compete on price anymore, people who are comfortable being more expensive because you're getting a better product. And I think that's a key understanding is I'm guilty of it. Dan, I'm pretty sure everybody on this call is guilty of it. If it's Mother's Day and I'm going to the store to buy chocolates for my wife, and I have two chocolates in front of me, and one is going to be gold and beautiful and looks fantastic, and the other just in a regular box, and even if the chocolate's better in the shitty box, Dan, I'm gonna buy the nice looking box, right? And I think because the quality perception is this has beautiful packaging, this must be a wonderful product, and we're guilty across the board. And there's a lot of eye tracking studies that talk about this, a lot of sensorial things like when you touch something, you have a 62% higher chance of buying something if you've touched it in a store. So don't touch anything.
Yeah, right. If you're not wanting to buy or hold on to your money, but if you do want to let go of your money, yeah, I believe that is true. And I heard that stat from you a
Yeah,
long time ago,
yeah.
and I have been reading more about that. And I agree. It is. I do it myself consciously now, and it's true.
Dan,
Yeah,
I've got a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
So when a brand comes to you and looks for embellishment, you share a sample, you show them
Yes.
every time?
Yes, usually we do a representative sample of what they're asking for. And then with digital technologies and the ability to prototype quickly, we can usually get something in front of them next day. So
Right.
yeah, or that afternoon if required. It depends how loud the fire alarm is ringing. So yeah, but yes, we'll have people that will say things like, "Oh, that's too expensive for us," and then by presenting them with a sample, they go, "Well, that's what I want."
Right.
So it totally flips that purchaser conversation to a marketing-driven value conversation,
Right.
rather than just I have a budget.
So it's the touch, the sample that creates the
Like this
it's the
slide.
jump over the
If they
value.
touch it, they'll buy
Right.
it. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's
In
such a hack.
my experience, yes.
So the importance is all around the sample showing it to them.
Yeah, I believe so. And being able to visualize it quickly, either through a digital method or through a physical method shortly thereafter.
Right.
Yeah, it's such a hack. Like if you guys as printers understand, like the second they touch something, and especially if it's been embellished, like you'll see those thumbs going and start petting the print, like point that stuff out. There's a lot of things happening from a psychology standpoint. And actually, I think I gave a talk on this very subject last time, if I'm not
That's right.
mistaken. But it's kind of cool. And a new study just came out saying that if you touch something in a store, you're willing to pay 33% more than if you didn't touch it. So it also affects your value perception on how much something is worth. So that's the key, guys. If you guys want to sell this, this could print is tactile by nature, not just embellishments. Get samples in their hands. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the study that's coming out. So this is top secret, guys. Don't get us in trouble. We worked with WhatTheyThink.com. And we put together the second study called the Digital Embellishment Study. And so we had done the study back in 2023, and we had captured a good part of the data, a lot of really interesting data, the real in-depth stuff. And then we did the same exact study this year. And what I just wanted to show you and kind of talk about, and we can kind of bounce this around, is more or less kind of like the differences that change from 23 to 25. So, that's kind of how I thought this was going to go. So Dan, if that's good with you, I can kind of talk more about it.
I feel that's okay.
That's good stuff. That works for us. So one of the things that's really coming out is that, we're seeing a much higher frequency of use. So people who were probably running 1 or 2 or 3 hours a day are now going to full shifts, second shifts. We're seeing people buying second, third machines for embellishments to be able to keep up with demand as those opportunities grow with them that they're bringing in. We're seeing a different investment rationale, meaning people are buying this technology from a different reason compared to 23. And the biggest challenges still rely and are around sales enablement. So, a lot of people who sell print don't necessarily have the understanding of who to go see, what that talk track looks like, and most importantly, feeling comfortable selling on value and not necessarily price. And that's a big thing that we are actively trying to push, is understanding that, this is not the stuff that you have to give away. This is the stuff that you charge a premium, and people, in many cases, sometimes raising your price will have a positive effect because people believe that they're getting a better product. And I think that's kind of really interesting. People typically think lowering the price will increase sales. In this case, what we're seeing is sometimes that actually works the other way. So why are people investing in digital embellishment versus 23? Well, in 23, I think we've seen a big jump in people wanting to invest for profit reasons. So this is either indicating that the pricing COVID, I think a lot of printers raised their prices, and potentially now those prices are coming back down. I think a lot of printers kept their prices where they were, which was, I think, good for the market. But I think this kind of reflects a shift from more a reactive adoption to more of a proactive implementation. So people are not just buying because they want to be first, or they're not just buying because they think this customer is going to like it, or they see an opportunity. They're buying it because they have been making the investment by outsourcing, in many cases, to people who have this technology. They've been marking up 10, 20 points, and now realize actually that they could be marking up 50, 60 points, 80 points instead by bringing it in-house. So the rationale for investment has really shifted from 23 to 25. And I think that was kind of interesting. Let's talk about competition. In 23, guys, 2023, we asked printers, how many people that you compete with are offering digital embellishment. 28% said, or they said 28% of them said that they had competition selling embellishments. in 25, that boosted by 22%. So half of the people out there who are actively using digital embellishment technologies are identifying that their competitors are also using digital embellishment technologies. So I think is that something that you're kind of seeing, Dan, or not yet in the
I would totally agree with that. And again, it goes back to the conversation of clients being more, willing to go down that path. So not only are we offering it more to more clients and competing more, but clients are asking for it more as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This was a really interesting stat. The daily usage of digital embellishment technology versus 2023 has quadrupled.
Yeah.
So that's a 400% increase in daily use versus 2023. So it means that now it's becoming more and more integrated into the daily operations. The workflows are now being worked out. So sales and estimation and design and production now have like a smooth a chain to get the work in, sold, approved, and out the door. But I thought this was kind of one of the best news that we see is that there's a significant increase in daily use of digital embellishment technology.
So this slide captures onto a question that we were asked earlier, and that was, the last part, a core part of production workflows. Can you elaborate maybe on how this is being incorporated into production workflows? How do you get your workflow to process these embellishments digitally?
So that's a very complicated question, and
I know.
what I'm seeing is that no two printers really do it the same way. Everybody has their own way of doing it. A lot of it is homegrown. I think, there's not that many people addressing this. This space is something that we're starting to address as a company on how to fluidify that workflow. I know that you have a couple of sponsors on this webinar, people like Ultimate who are doing some great work on helping with that workflows. But I think today there's the workflow from a software standpoint, and then there's a workflow from a people standpoint. And
Right.
understanding what the machine can and cannot do, and getting the salespeople to collaborate with the designers, or to have the customer service reps understand, what the estimating looks like, and having all those key areas inside of a print shop basically work seamlessly together. I think is something that we're seeing, but there's still some ways to go in order to have really, I think, a very fluid. Now, if you're looking at like fifth and sixth color, things like the Indigo, or things like other fifth and sixth like Xerox and Fuji and Sharp and all that, those are a little bit different. They have some really good tools. The fiery front end is good, but still, there's still one key area that hurts, that is really kind of the biggest obstacle to adoption, and that's getting people to design for the stuff, Dan. And I think, you want to talk about like where the heart of the issue with really mainstreaming this stuff is. I think, and this, I could be wrong, and I'd love to hear what the panel thinks, or what everybody else thinks, is, getting people to understand how to design for this is one of those key things. And we'll talk about that later. I have a couple slides that
Sure.
talk about design, but we've estimated that there's probably like 4,000 designers on this whole planet, Dan, that really know what they're doing when it comes to designing for digital embellishment. Meaning, a lot of that work is being funneled through those 3,000 or 4,000 designers out there who know how to use a fifth color gold, or how to use a silver underlay correctly, or how to use a tactile 3D on top of a holographic foil. Like, they're very limited. And so I think that's one of the key things that we'll talk about. It's still one of the major issues. We've seen a big shift in applications versus 23. And 23 was business cards, brochures, tickets, labels, and folding carton. This year, kind of the main feedback that we got from the market was business cards, believe it or not, still remains one of the top applications, and believe it or not, still remains one of the highest profit margin applications in the market. Typically, you're looking at 250 cards, maybe 500 cards, so it's going to be very low margin. You have that many cases, $150 to $200 minimum setup charge to run these things. So it's going to be very high margin application. I know a lot of printers that charge $1 a card or more for digitally embellished cards. At least that's what I'm paying, and these are my friends doing it for me. That's what they're charging me. So I get the good price.
Good side, Kevin. Keep them on your good side. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. One of the biggest shift that we saw in 25 was really the rise of direct mails. Direct mail, there's been some great USPS. So I don't know if the Canadian Post does some of the same programs to incentivize using tactile enhancements on your mail. You guys don't have that? Do you have that? I don't know.
I don't believe so. And the question really could be asked if we have a post office. Anyway, yes, for the direct mail people, it's not there quite yet. You guys have
Right.
a lot in the US. There's a lot more options for that.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's really just I almost want to say it's almost like a US market direct mail. Like you go to Europe, they got GDPR. You can't do any of the cool stuff that we're doing in the States. And so I think that's, a very US centric market that maybe doesn't necessarily speak a lot to everybody on this call. Brochures still one of the top three. What was kind of surprising was the resurgence of books. So book covers, and any of you guys who are taking an airplane later or have a book around, you go into any of those little Hudson News airport stores that they sell books. I mean, they're going to have matte lam, raised emboss. They're going to have some spot UV and some sort of foil. And so, books happen to be one of the most embellished applications, I think, in the world today. And so that's really something that we're seeing a rise in. And then POS display, I think that's kind of been really interesting. There's been a lot of work for a lot of the end caps, the in-store displays, where people are trying to get that attention. When you're walking by and you're trying to reflect that light to get that kind of a reaction. So that's been very positive on that side, from a movement standpoint. Run lengths are getting longer, which I think kind of shows people are more confident in running longer runs than they were in 23. So run lengths still more or less overall will average around 500 sheets for digital embellishments. That's kind of more or less what we're seeing, but we're seeing a big shift towards the under 500 sheets towards the over 500 sheets application. So people are more confident, the operators are getting better, the technology is more stable, and they're able to actually make a good business case to run those longer runs. So that's kind of one of the big differences that we saw versus 25. Marketing, unfortunately, this is really like one of the hardest things to get printers to do. Dan, you're not like a lot of the other printers that I know. You do great marketing for yourself.
Still struggle,
You
but
still
yes.
and then still I think one of the great mysteries I think of the world is, when we look at our industry and we do nothing but really marketing most of the time, we have, some inherent struggles marketing ourselves, especially as PSPs, to the market. One of the questions that we wanted to ask is, how are you marketing this digital embellishment stuff? And what we've seen is there's a 10% decrease in people who are not doing any marketing, and there's a 15% increase in people who created their own brands. So you recently launched a raised brand, like
Yes, our Impress brand, yes, and it's done quite well because people are aware and people are wanting to sort of buy into a program of goods rather than just source you as a supplier per se.
So those of us who don't know what Impress is, give us just a quick breakdown of what it is and what you did.
Well, we developed a way to dimensionally raise emblems and logo marks on pretty much any surface. And we are really like supplying brands and users an alternative to putting an emblem on something, or doming for that matter, but we're able to produce it digitally and in a way that's flexible to mount to any surface, basically. So that's been a great boon for us, and we've been able to offer different embellishment services that aren't in the marketplace. So we've really been able to differentiate our offering.
Right.
And it goes on places like end caps, and it goes on books, and it goes on presentation boxes. So, and on t-shirts and on hats. So it's to, you know, to
But you built
put,
a brand. You built a brand around it, Dan.
we did, yeah.
You didn't just
And
say, "Hey, this is doming," or you didn't, "Hey, this is you." You built a brand around it, and I think that's one of the key things that your customers know. And they probably ask other printers for, "Hey, can you do Impress?" And if that ends up in an RFP, and you own the trademark on Impress, it's got to go to you.
that's right. So, I mean, we're trying, and it continues to be a bigger part of our business every year. It's hard to do, but one of the tacit advantages is exactly what's being shown here. We're getting hits on that way more than had we not branded it.
Correct.
And it gives us a vocabulary in the marketplace to talk to brands, basically, in a way that they understand. More important,
That's right.
not as a printer. Yeah,
That's right. So that's great to see, and more printers are understanding the power of maybe a sub brand, or like a white glove brand, or maybe a black label brand, or however they want to pitch it. And many times they start, okay, I just bought this machine that can do this doming. I'm going to start off and just market it as Impress. And what we're seeing, believe it or not, is now they're starting to take that Impress brand and applying it to different existing equipment that they have, but just as the higher level. Maybe it's a higher paper quality, or it's a different type of lamination. And so that Impress is basically, look, we've got the regular italic brand, but if you want something really high end, you can, right, exactly. You can
it's
do the
amazing.
Impress. Right. And then the only difference is you're
higher.
charging, 20% higher.
Right. Yeah.
So do you do any swatch books, like embellished swatch books that
We
you would
do
send
do
to
swatch
somebody? So
books.
when you have a virtual meeting, then they can touch your physical.
Very much
thing,
so.
Trigger the mic?
And Paul, that's a good question, because we have a beautiful silver swatch book that we use on our HB inks. So
That's what triggered my mind.
that we
You
send
use
out,
that.
and putting samples in front of people, but that doesn't tell the whole story either, because that only gives them a baseline on how to use it and maybe what color to pick. But really it comes down to, prototyping and getting there.
I mean, if you're making a pitch to somebody.
It's a
they're-
start.
They don't
It's a
understand the
great
value,
start.
right? And then they touch it, you
Yeah.
focus on your 5 or 6 different embellishment types that you're good at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pick one.
Yeah, no, that's great. And to get people engaged by putting things in their hands is the most important part, I believe. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Kevin,
From a,
can I ask you a question?
yes, please.
Last year when I saw you in Drupa,
Yep.
you had wonderful, and I'm afraid I hope I don't ask you a question that hasn't developed, but I know it was developed last year. Remember you had online pricing models, live online pricing models with tactical solutions?
Yeah, it launches on Tuesday, just so you know.
that's super, that's super Andy.
Okay, did I?
So great. I can't, people are gonna think I
Okay.
paid you to ask that question.
Okay, all right. I was innocent.
No, you can go for it. What was the question?
Question was, I didn't see it anywhere and I didn't see it talking about it, so I thought that was pretty amazing what I saw last year. It's certainly going to help with people's pricing objections, help them understand what's really happening in the market, whether it's in country or in province or in state or around the world. Kind of so you understand what others are paying, and whether you look at it from an analog process or a digital process, I mean, you have everything you need right there.
Right. It's a big part of, we were trying to understand what the perceived value of embellishments were. So we spent 4 years kind of doing research, building an AI insight model that could basically model all this stuff out. We were in beta for 1.5 years, and basically, depending on what zip code you're selling a job into, what application, what vertical that customer is in. So it's going to have all kinds of different either accelerators or decelerators to that price levels, and giving you an understanding of what the market bearable price should be. Think of it like Kelly Blue Book. Do you guys have Kelly Blue Book in Canada, or is that not a thing?
I don't.
When you sell your car, let's say you wanted to sell your car.
The black book value. We have a black book here in Canada.
Right, so it's same thing. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So very similar. So thank you, Paul, for letting me talk about that. But yes, that gets all the PR goes out on Tuesday, and so we're launching it at Amplify, which is a show that's going to be coming up in 2 weeks here.
And that's gonna work in Canada?
It is. We're finalizing the Canadian model as we speak. So yeah, absolutely, that's something we plan to do. So we have betas in Canada now, and just basically validating our pricing models.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got it. So regarding demand, that's what another question we said. We said, compared to 3 years ago, what's the shift in demand that you've seen regarding digital embellishments? 29% said that there was more demand, and a little bit more than half said it was a similar type of demand that they saw. So what we're seeing is definitely a push towards more demand. And it's funny, like a lot of the people that I work with are probably these kind of people. People who maybe bought the technology and haven't found the success that they were hoping to find. And what we find is, generally speaking, a lot of the things that they have in common is, you know, this is the kind of person who thinks if you build it, they will come. And I wish it was that easy, that just buying a piece of technology will bring business. But the reality is you have to build it, and then you have to go out there and you've got to market it. You got to do what Dan did. You got to brand it. You got to teach your salespeople how to have that conversation. There's a lot of work that goes into launching a new offering or a new product internally. It's not as easy as just buying the technology. And that's kind of, I think, the fundamental shift between people who are seeing this and the people who are seeing that. What do you think, Dan? Am I off on this and saying something like this?
Terribly spot on. It's a lot of work for sure.
Right.
But yeah, build it, they'll come, kind of. Market it, and they'll come more. So
That's right. The juice is worth the squeeze, right? At the end of the day, if you do it right, it should be. And I think people don't realize this, and this is kind of one of the biggest feedback that you get from people who are doing embellishments, is that you ask them about what the ROI looks like. And the first response they're going to give you is saying, it's hard to tell you because it's not just the work that's coming off of this press. It's because I have this unique embellishment capability. It's also my offset presses are moving, my indigos or my iridesces or my conicas, my canons, they're all printing more. So sometimes having that unique finishing will be able to have upstream benefits by getting you to print more jobs. And that's something that I think is very, very typical to people who ask, if you ask them, what is one of the biggest advantages of bringing in digital embellishment? It's not just making more money. It's not just kind of positioning yourself with a different type of clientele or branding yourself as kind of like a higher end. It's also got that ability to allow you to print more sheets on your presses, which is really the core business.
Well, and I'd also add to that too, that you can also come to a startling like non-growth area when your internal people just look at it as it does just one thing.
Right.
So when you bring on a new piece of digital embellishment equipment, anything is possible if you try, and you have to keep trying and marketing.
Well, what you're saying is kind of funny because actually I have a slide that talks about that, is the importance of training your people on what is possible. And the more educated your sales teams are, the more creative they're going to get regarding the people that they can go see to sell this type of work. We talked about rising familiarity. I think, Dan, you kind of nailed this. People are now very familiar. Once they talk to you, once you bought that technology to do the impress work, now what we're seeing is that in 23, 76% of people said that there was a high level of familiarity with their embellishment after installing the press. That's bumped by 14% to 90% familiarity, meaning printers are doing a very good job, or at least they think they're doing a very good job based on this data. I didn't mean it that way. I mean, like, this is printers judging themselves on how their customers are familiar. They feel that like 90% feel that there's a high level of familiarity with the technology that they purchased and what it could do for their shelf velocity, or what it could do for the response rates, or what it could do for the myriad of different applications you can do with embellishments. We've seen an 8% increase in people who are seeing profitability from 23 to 25. So we're seeing better pricing strategies, kind of to Paul's point earlier. That's, I think, in the study, we asked them, how are you estimating for embellishments? It's kind of horrific, Dan. Like a lot of it was like napkin math. A lot of it was gut feeling. I think a lot of the right-in
Yeah.
responses was, "Oh, I know how much they'll pay." And there's a lack of a lot of data to strategize on, what is the optimum pricing level I can get to get the job, but not leave money on the table. And Keypoint did an interesting study a couple of years ago. They asked 200 printers how much they can get for embellished work. How much could you sell this for? And then they asked 200 print buyers, what are you willing to pay for this? And the delta was like 40 points. So there was like 40
Right.
points between what printers thought they can get and what people were willing to pay. And so when we have a lot of non-data driven, I think, pricing strategies, people tend to, I think, leave a lot of money on the table. And I think it's too bad. There's no need to do it, but I understand life is life and business is business. And we've been doing it like this for a while and it's always worked for us. But just know if you are having embellishments and you are selling it, chances are you could probably sell it a little higher, or at least try to track what people are willing to pay for it, which
For sure.
yeah.
For sure. And I'd add to that too, that, when selling value add, understand what the value is and know your market. And it's not a race to the bottom, simply for the fact that, I mean, we're at a 500 sheet sort of average run length right now. There's fewer people in the marketplace that offer it right now, but I believe it is everyone's responsibility to not drive to the bottom and really.
There's no need. There's no
Yeah,
need. There's no need. I mean, we should have learned a lot of lessons with color print. We should have learned lessons with wide format. And I think the key is let's try to not repeat the same mistakes and just driving the price to the bottom, because there's no need to. You're really at this point just shooting yourself in the foot if that's kind of where it's going to. So yeah. So ongoing obstacles, we've seen a decrease in client confusion, meaning brands understand what it is that you're talking about when you're talking to them about embellishment, which is a positive sign. Cost justification still remains to be the same. This is the biggest, I think, obstacle today is how can you prove the ROI and an incremental increase in my cost of production? What does that mean to my overall sales if I'm in packaging or if I'm in direct mail or if I'm doing all these different type of applications? So cost justification still remains our top obstacle when talking to brands. And then design issues too, which we talked about, is something that has gone up. So people don't necessarily know how to design for that fifth or sixth color. I'm just going to go a little through this one. So talking about design difficulties, we've really seen that more people are really saying that there is a higher level of design difficulty compared to 2023, which I think is funny. So I think it's kind of a microcosm of where the market is today. These designers many times aren't being taught. Forget about embellishment, Stan. They're not being taught for print. These are these graphic designers, a lot of them are coming out, being taught for web.
Look, the quality of graphic design has definitely decreased after COVID.
Yeah, you've seen it, right?
Oh my goodness. The client used to be the holder of the specifications and now they're just like, get it done.
And how about this? How much work do you get that's been designed on Canva?
More.
Right.
More, but not a lot, but it's creeping, for
So
sure.
I was at Graphics Canada and I asked a lot of these people, a lot of the printers, tell me, what do you, and their biggest pain is like, man, we are getting all these designers or Canva designers that are designing in an RGB world. That's all they know is RGB. And then they bring us their file and then they get CMYK and they're like, what is this? This is not at all how it looked on my screen. And so there's a high level of disappointment sometimes from people designing in Canva, thinking it's going to look a certain way, and then getting something printed and saying, that's not at all how I saw it in my head. And I think, you look at that fifth and sixth color option, being able to expand the gamuts, some of them being able to hit some more of those colors than you could in a traditional CMYK space. I think that's also, it's not necessarily, I wouldn't consider it embellishment, but that gamut, its extension as part of that fifth or sixth color space can definitely kind of help with those Canva designs.
For sure, for sure.
So this is
Sorry,
Oh,
Yep.
and we have a question from the floor.
question.
Yes.
So I'm gonna stay away from Kevin on this.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Dan again.
Oh, no.
So what do you see the path of success for the designers of your company in the path that you've gone through?
Like our client designers?
Yeah, no, but so the designers that you deal with your staff or?
Well, we have both, and really, when we're asked if we have graphic design capabilities, we usually say not really, but we're more of a technical design team.
Right.
That can either assist in getting the first concept out.
Right.
But then usually it goes back to the design team and the proper design team. Because you're dealing with brands, then they usually have an infrastructure there that can handle
Correct.
the design. But when it comes to what Kevin's talking about, layers or clears or silvers,
Right.
I mean, they're just gonna make it layers, and then it's really up to our team to do proper pre-press
Right.
and run it through. So where we see a huge increase in our team's workload is in 3D rendering, mock-ups, die line work, making sure that it's like going to cut properly for the thickness of stock.
Right.
And supplying customers, not necessarily with the design, but with the die line, so that they can then design quickly at the project that they require. So all of that work has increased exponentially. And when you get into embellishments, it's going to increase even more.
Right.
Because usually an embellished product is a dimensional project that is going to be turned into a box or some sort of, not just a flat brochure. I mean, we're even 3D rendering pocket folders these days because honestly, some of the people that we're dealing with can't visualize it. And visualization is very difficult in a digital world these days with kids who have not really handled much in their hands.
Right.
So this is a brand new experience. So you got to digitize the physical, which is crazy in my brain, but probably all of our brains here, but not for this new generation.
Right.
Because they want to see it on screen and they trust the screen more than the physical product.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
That's how I see the world.
How
So
then do you proof a RGB created image in a CMYK workspace virtually to your client?
we don't usually change it. We keep it in RGB as long as possible and let the rip do its
Yeah, but
its
you don't
version.
know the result until it's printed.
We do, or I would also argue, usually it doesn't matter. Because it's just moving so quickly.
Rob, if I can interject, the certain things like in Low Martin, what we do is if we're getting RGB in, we're converting the file to CMYK and we're sending it back to the client so that on screen they can actually see the difference between the RGB and CMYK.
Yeah, that would be.
Or if you have a close connection with your client and you have enough time, relying on your G7 spec
That's right.
proofers to
Probably get better.
Really important
disappointment.
color control within the shop is important. And I would also say that doing that physical sample at the end or right at the beginning tempers expectations.
It's probably better to get the disappointment over at the front end and virtually.
It usually is.
Nope.
I've always found that to be the case. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Yes, question.
More a question than a comment. I deal with 5 of the largest agencies in Toronto and their color management. Every one of them is G7 certified. Now, to take one agency we went into, there was 50 uncalibrated monitors that the designers were using. We calibrated them all and we threw 12 of them in the garbage. But every one of those organizations now are trained. And when they're new designers coming in, they're actually sat down and taught the difference between RGB and CMYK. So the education at that end is quite good. And really, it's held the printers accountable.
Yeah.
Because I dealt with one agency, they have their magazines printed by 4 of the largest printers in the United States. What they did was I calibrated everything for them. They sent their random stamps as proofs. The printer was going to combine the text and send it back to them, and they sent a proof back. Well, the proofs didn't match. And basically I went in and they set up our proofs and 3 from printers. And I took a look at them and read the validations on them and took those 3 and threw them in the garbage.
Right.
And I said, now, you're correct. It is now the printer's responsibility to match that proof. And that's come a long way from when I started this industry where we tried to match proof. Okay, so the educational level at that point is there. I'm seeing it more and more and more.
There are tiered levels of production in our world these days. I'm sure they were always there, but pleasing color, what we used to term pleasing color back in the day, I mean, it's really good color these days. It's more than pleasing, it's usually perfect color. And if you're managing your workflow internally, and I would suggest that 80% of what we're doing, which might be different than what other people are doing, as long as we're in that exceptional, pleasing, color calibrated world, we're okay. And when we're coming to embellishment, it might be spot color, so hit the Pantone. And we can usually do that in CMYK on certain technologies that we own, which are HB. And I feel like the press itself has come such a long way, and the conversion queue in the software have come such a long way that you can hit a lot in an RGB space that you weren't able to. So
the one thing I do find funny is that we actually have RGB profile set up in their printers. Because when they're outputting their pitches, they want the brightest color they can possibly get. Clean colors, that's how I want to see. Bright, bright, bright. Okay.
It
That's
usually
the only
expresses
kind.
itself as we like what we're seeing from your press, because the new print buyer does not necessarily have the vocabulary of what they're looking at. So if they like it, they're good. And then if there's a brand standard, get the Pantones. Like, that's the game these days, it seems to me. But
that's true. The whole print world has changed. The proofing has boiled down to PDFs now. Like, nobody is really asking for hard proofs. They just want quick, because everybody needs the job yesterday. So it's PDFs now.
No such thing as a rush job anywhere, right? It's they're all rush jobs today. It's
Then what?
Correct.
You order from one window and pick up from the next.
But my proofing media sales are going up.
Yeah.
okay, so Kevin,
So-
we have a few minutes left.
Yeah, just real quick, just want to let everybody know that 11% increase in people looking to buy a second machine this year. So that's really showing a lot of investment confidence where people are looking to make more investments. And I think what's really kind of cool is that if you ask printers who are currently in digital embellishment, whether it's 5th and 6th color, whether it's inkjet, whether it's any of those different technologies, what is your outlook on the future of digital print embellishments? 88% have a positive outlook on where it's headed, which is an increase of 14% versus last year or 2 years ago. So we're seeing a lot of very positive images, a lot of positive data that's pushing towards embellishments, and it's been a phenomenal ride, and I think I can't wait to see kind of what the studies are going to look like in the next 2 years. But right now, it feels like we're really riding that wave of embellishments in the right way. So yeah, Dan, I mean, if you guys want
That's
to know more,
fantastic.
please hit us up. If you have questions, you want to chat, just ask these guys. They'll give you my number, or you can get us on our link tree here. There's all our different links that are available for you to access all of our fun content that we generate.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for today's great presentation. I feel like it's a very important part of the digital community these days, and any way to make more profit, more money, and more interesting things, for that matter, to present to your clients and to their audiences it's just fantastic.
100%.
Yeah. So in closing the meeting, just like to thank our sponsors. Our platinum sponsors are Canon, HP, Innovative Display, INX, Inks, Konica Minolta, Landa, Spicers, Trinet Global Logistics. Our gold sponsors, Adobe, Fujifilm, Graphics Canada, Heidelberg, Kodak, Kongsberg Precision Cutting Systems, Mini Giants, Plastic and Paper. Our silver sponsors, GMG Color, Significance Automation, Sydney Stone, and bronze sponsor, Ultimate Tech. Thank you for HP for their ongoing support in hosting this meeting. We really appreciate that. As always, today's session has been recorded, and the recording will be posted to the DIA YouTube page. The link will be available within 1 week. If you would like it, please email marg@digitalimagingassociation.com, MARG. A knowledge resource synopsis will be distributed to everyone who has attended today. This is a member benefit. The DIA started in January 2023 and has been issued for all meetings since then. And then we are honored to be affiliated with Inkish TV. Inkish, the #1 unbiased source of news and information in the global print community, and free access to all Inkish TV events worldwide at inkishtv.com, exclusive in North America for DIA members only. So that's amazing. Upcoming DIA events, Thursday, June 12th. Oh my goodness, it's the DIA annual golf tournament at the Nottawasaga Resort. I will be there and hopefully play okay. I hear there's some amazing things at the hole-in-one developing, so keep in tune there and show up at the golf tournament. If you haven't signed up, do so already. It's an amazing day with a barbecue lunch and a buffet dinner and an awesome sign-in gift. So this year, we're delighted that TriNet Global Logistics is once again hosting a Caesar stand on the course. I'll be there. Hopefully you will too.
You can park there.
On the 8th hole, apparently. There you go. So be sure to watch your inbox for the sponsor spotlight, a targeted printing industry news update that arrives in your inbox and as a printable PDF once a month. This e-blast will keep you up to date on new products and services available from our value-based sponsors. It will also include comments on current and future trends and issues while keeping you up to date on what's happening in these industry-leading companies. We really hope you helpful. We hope you find it helpful. Join the DIA today by scanning the QR code. And there it is, scan. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you found it educational and fun. In appreciation of the generous contribution of his time and knowledge for today's session, a donation will be made to the Canadian Print Scholarship Fund on behalf of Kevin at Taktiful. So thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Very nice to see you all.
Thank you. Are we off now? Kevin, it was awesome.